How you doing, everyone? Vasi Party, Casey Freelove, Charlie O. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast for Friday, March 20th, 2021. What a weekend it's going to be. The Sweet 16 March Madness tournament continues Saturday to Tuesday. Saturday and Sunday, the Sweet 16. The Elite Eights will go Monday and Tuesday. In fact, Monday, join us on Monday. We'll have Ken Sterling live from Indianapolis on Monday to tell us how all the machinations and everything went on Monday. We're powered by Stables Media, sponsored by Viget. Download the Viget app, use the MTMAR promo code. We got big things going on in the Sweet 16. Major League Baseball is 6 days away. The NBA, we've got a couple things going on in the NBA this weekend as well, too. Going into the playoffs, the tournament play-ins have been set for May 18th to May 21st. And before I forget, happy 18th birthday to my niece, Sabrina. Today is her 18th birthday. I don't know what she's doing for school or whatever, but if she watches our podcast, don't go to the horse races on your birthday today. Actually, you can anyway, but that's great.
Oh, I'm sure the track's full of 18-year-olds today.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. So the NBA, NCAA, Major League Baseball, will hit all that. We'll get Casey's take on the trade deadline yesterday. He wasn't with us yesterday, so we'll give him the opportunity to get on the trade deadline. What a trade deadline it was. But let's start out with the NFL because there is nothing ever so considered as an off season in the NFL anymore. It's game season or it's non-game season, but there's always news. Apparently today was Zach Wilson's pro day, and the 49ers, John Lynch, Adam Peete. I live in Northern California, so I heard this today, but I'm sure other teams are interested in this as well too. Maybe not Jacksonville, but the Jets, the 49ers, and I'll tell you why in the 49ers, as you can read on the screen right now. And, of course, the Atlanta Falcons probably got screwed out of this whole thing if they're looking for a quarterback as well. 49ers trade with the Miami Dolphins to get the number 3 pick. They give them back their first-round pick, number 12, in this year's draft, a 2022, a 2023 first-round pick, and a third-round pick in 2022. Miami then takes that 12th pick and sends it to Philadelphia for the 6th pick, and Miami also has the number 18 pick. So the first dominoes have fallen, Charlie. You cover the 49ers. And we know about Miami. Obviously, Tua Tagovailoa is going to be the quarterback for Miami now. There's no more Ryan Fitzpatrick there. And Philadelphia with Jalen Hurts there, obviously moving back to 6. They're looking for anything offensive line. There's probably some offensive linemen that are right there that are going to be available for Philadelphia because they got to protect that quarterback, Charlie. So what's your take? Obviously, we have the NFL going right now, as always.
Well, my take is the 49ers made this move because they're going after a quarterback. You don't make this move because you're going after a defensive lineman or a tackle or whatever at this point. You've got a quarterback that you want to go after. So that's the deal at this point. I listened to a little bit of Jeremiah today, whose first name just went right out of my head. What's his first name?
Anyway, Daniel. Gotcha.
Daniel Jeremiah from the NFL Network today. And he talked a little bit about it. His thinking is that the Niners are looking at the kid from North Dakota State because he's already had his pro day. And they've had a chance to look at him. He said they've had a number of Zoom meetings with him already, and that they have not. The kid from BYU has not had his pro day yet. So Justin Fields hasn't had his pro day yet. So that his thinking is that the 49ers have made this move because they've made their mind up already who they want. He doesn't think that they would have made this move to go get Justin Fields if they hadn't looked at him yet. I don't know. That's interesting to me. But both he and Ian Rappaport both said that even though the Niners have made this move, don't assume that this means Jimmy Garoppolo is gone, because both of them say that their intel says that Garoppolo is going to stay and that this is going to be more of a Kansas City move where they keep the veteran quarterback and bring the new guy along, and then when time is right, they trade the veteran guy and bring the new guy on board, which makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, to me, those types of situations have been more successful rather than just take the new guy and drop him in to the lion's den and hope that he does well.
Casey, go ahead, Casey. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just looking. I'm looking at Garoppolo's contract while Charlie's talking here. You've got basically a base salary of $24 million for this season. You've got him under contract for next season as well. Don't forget, he signed a 5-year deal back in 2018. So if you want to tutor along a quarterback, which has been really kind of different than a lot of teams have gone, they usually throw these guys right into the fire. I'm thinking of you, Joe Burrow, and your injured knee with the Bengals last year. Why not give it a shot? Now, the last 4 times that we've had this exact situation where a team traded up to get into the number 3 hole, all 4 of those teams took a number 3 quarterback. They took a quarterback with the 3rd pick, is my point. And this worked out really well for the world champions from 2 years ago, the Kansas City Chiefs, who had Alex Smith under center, selected Patrick Mahomes with the intention of getting him a year of tutelage. That's what they did. It worked out well for him. In the end, it worked out pretty good for Alex as well. So if they think that that's the way they want to go about it, that's fine. I'm a little worried about the back end if I'm a 49er fan, just how much you've given up, because this is kind of saying, look, we better win right now because we're not going to have top-tier talent coming in here in the first round unless we make some other moves. But John Lynch is pretty damn good. I'm a big fan of John Lynch, both as a player and a general manager. He's done an excellent job navigating this franchise back into relevancy when for a while they were kind of a laughing stock. I mean, I'm thinking back like when Mike Singletary was the coach, or Nolan when he used to wear the stupid suit on the sideline. There wasn't much to talk about there. But now you've got a real good unit. You're in a tough division, yes, but all 3 of us said, throughout the course of last year, Vasu, this team, if they weren't injured, would be competing for a playoff spot. And I fully expect this year's team, who did a good job keeping their free agents, will be competing for a playoff spot. The debate about who goes, though, is definitely the most fun. I'm looking at CBS Sports Draft Board. Everybody's got Lawrence going 1 to Jacksonville. That's the no-brainer. I 100% agree. He's the best quarterback on paper coming in. They've got the Jets taking Zach Wilson at number 2 and pulling a move to trade Sam Darnold to get some more picks. I could see that happening. They put Justin Fields, who we were just talking about, with San Francisco right now, and then they've got Trey Lance going to the Denver Broncos. And that would be pretty weird to have the top 4 picks in a row go as quarterbacks. Yes, usually the quarterback is the number 1 pick, but you often see a right tackle or a dominant defender up there in that mix as well. What it tells you is, once again, we talk about generational play in the NFL, Vasu. The young guys are coming for us. We better know who they are from their college playing days, because pretty soon they're going to be tending to these franchises. I'm just excited as hell about it. The NFL, they are so good to me and good to us. They make me feel like a kid on Christmas Eve, because there's not going to be a game played for like 5 or 6 months. And I am almost more excited to talk about this than I am about March Madness.
We'll see how happy we are when September and October roll around and we start throwing wagers around. We'll see how happy the NFL is for us. But, okay, so let me give you a couple of quick takes here before we move on. Obviously, the NFL news takes precedence here because it's the first domino. 49ers have signed their left tackle. They can get a quarterback now. He's going to be there for 5 years, whoever comes in after Garoppolo. I don't think you should trade Jimmy Garoppolo right now. I know New England wants him because I don't think you should put the car keys into a rookie quarterback's hands right now. Everybody's gotten on Garoppolo because of what happened in the Super Bowl. It wasn't his fault last year that the entire team was injured, including himself. After he got the non-penalty call in the Super Bowl, he went 2 for 8, and he was totally shell-shocked and missed the Kittle throw, missed the Emmanuel Sanders throw. They could have won that Super Bowl. Defense gave up the 3rd and 15 on the Tyreek Hill play. We wouldn't even be having this conversation. As far as Philadelphia goes, they're going to move down to 6 because they're obviously investing in Jalen Hurts. They're going to get a left tackle. They have to revamp that whole offensive line. And that 18th pick maybe can also the later picks they have. I know they have another first-round pick. I don't know where it is, but they're going to have to invest in some defense. We saw how Philadelphia ended their year last year. Miami, the wild card here, has 2 picks. They are trying to improve their offensive game. Their running game was lacking last year, and they need a running game to complement Tua Tagovailoa, and they need some secondary help. They have Minkah Fitzpatrick there, but they need some other he's not there, Minkah Fitzpatrick 2 years ago, but they need secondary help, and they need linebacker help right now because everybody's trying to get under the cap because of the fact that there were no fans, and they're still trying to find quality players. And the team that's not listed on the screen here is the Atlanta Falcons. Matt Ryan is going to be 36 years old in May. and now all of a sudden the 49ers have jumped up ahead of Atlanta, below New York, and they were looking at a quarterback as well too. In the last second here, I'm just going to ask you guys to take a pick here. What's your order of the quarterbacks after Trevor Lawrence? I'll give you mine first. I'm going to say Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, and then Mac Jones, and then as a wild card down, maybe later in the first round, second round, Justin Fields. At that point, Casey, go ahead.
Well, I want to say Mac Jones is being underrated here. The problem is Mac Jones literally had an NFL player at pretty much every position for him in the SEC, so it makes it a little harder to evaluate. I think based on sample size, Tua has done a pretty good job, being another Alabama quarterback that was highly touted, and I think his best years are ahead of him, as long as he doesn't run too much. I'd like Tua to become a little bit more of a pocket passer, but Mac Jones is definitely the wild card here. If you look at all the different draft projections, he's the guy that's kind of on the fringe, like outside the top 10, but he's a winner. He's been a winner his whole life. He obviously knows how to find good quality talent around him, and he's a national champion, which I don't know if that means anything in the NFL, but I think he's intriguing. I want to like Zach Wilson as much as you two do. I just don't. I don't like the BYU program. They don't do anything in the National Football League. He doesn't do anything for me as far as his body type, and it would be so New York Jets of them to pick him and have him come to New York and be the next Sam Darnold or the laundry list of quarterbacks that they've missed on. Not hating on the kid. I just don't know that much about him. The only game I watched him play 60 minutes was against Coastal Carolina, which ended up being a loss. Justin Fields was the highest, a guy that we were talking about. This is the guy. He could pass Trevor Lawrence. And then he went out and got destroyed by Alabama in the national championship game, which maybe took a little luster off him. But as far as looking at, body type, size, 6'3", 228. He's got the mobility as well. He's big, he's strong, he's tough, and I think he's going to be a good pickup. Another wild card with Trey Lance, because we don't watch a lot of, lower tier, if you will, 1AA football as fans. But the guy on paper and what I've seen on video looks very intriguing. And Charlie, I'll throw it to you. And Vasu, I did want to say before we conclude, let's just do a quick kind of winners and losers, because I've got a franchise I think has done really well here in the offseason. But Charlie,
go ahead, give it to us now.
Well, let's talk about it. I mean, I think I was hating on him early on, but looking at what the Patriots have done, in Bill we trust, and I think it's going to end up being really a good thing for them. They're going to go back to that 2 tight end set that they used to run when they had the murderer Hernandez alongside Rob Gronkowski. The guy is a schematic genius. He knows how to put together plays, and he knows how to build teams. A little bit worried about the fact that they lost Joe Thuney, their offensive lineman, their guard, but you add 2 good tight ends. I think Nelson Aguilar is a guy that has more upside than downside. So I like that. And you've got Kyle Van Noy back with that team as well. And they're going to get the added benefit of those 7 guys that opted out last year, didn't want to play because of COVID, coming back. So once they figure out if Cam's their guy for this year or not, I think they're right there behind Buffalo as the second best team in the AFC East. And I think they're winners in free agency. I like it.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Well, as you look at this whole quarterback thing, I've kind of flipped a little bit in where I'm looking at this point. Justin Fields is looking better to me all the time. I'm still concerned about his durability. I really am. But, you look at his numbers and you look at his stats and you say, wow, he's better than I thought he was. Every number you look at is better than I thought it was. And his mobility is got to be so attractive to every NFL team that I can see that if it wasn't for Trevor Lawrence, he would be the number 1 pick. I really believe that at this point, going through. The kid from BYU, I agree with you, Casey. I don't believe in that BYU program. I really don't. I just don't think they put guys out there that are necessarily NFL quality. They don't play big time teams. It's tough to rate their players because as an independent, they don't really play a big time independent schedule a la a Notre Dame. So it's tough to rate their players. The kid out of Trey Lance, the kid out of North Dakota. Is it North Dakota State or just North
Dakota State?
North Dakota State. It's a 1AA school. and it's not that I'm against one, and I'm going to call them 1AA because you start getting into football series and everything else. It's a 1AA school, okay? It's a 1AA school, and you're really rolling the dice there. It's a different kind of football. He's faced a different kind of competition, and in my opinion, if you take him, you're taking a project, a la C. Carson Wentz, okay? So you don't know totally what you're getting there. Mac Jones, I don't know. I'd feel better about him than I would some of those other guys. So at this point, my ratings would be Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, and the field.
Very interesting topic. Obviously, the NFL dominates most times. The offseason, clearly, we were all set for trade deadline, Sweet 16, Major League Baseball, but then the 49ers, Dolphins, and Eagles dropped the chip here. I'm not sold on Mac Jones yet, not because he's not good, but he just doesn't have enough starts in college. Usually they have a rule about 36 starts, and then you can figure it out. But the NBA has gone young, and I just think Mac Jones will probably be good as a backup right now for a couple of years until he gets in there. Obviously, I don't think they should get rid of Garoppolo either. I know New England's hot on the trails for him, but I just don't want to leave the keys with a rookie quarterback unless they can get. I heard one theory about Gardner Minshew coming into San Francisco and then drafting a quarterback, and then they can have that system going for the next year. But it's going to be interesting to see. We'll have a lot of time to talk about it in terms of football, but let's move on here into the NBA for Casey. Casey wasn't with us yesterday. What'd you miss, Casey? Well, let's tell you what you missed. The NBA trade deadline. First, let me do the intro here. Vasu, Casey, and Charlie here. Make the Money and Run podcast. We're on Facebook Live. We're on Stables Media YouTube page. Drop any comments you want on Facebook to us about the NFL, what happened today, the trade deadline yesterday. We got Major League Baseball in a week. I know there's a lot of baseball fans on here as well, too. So feel free to download, subscribe if you missed any of the live podcasts on Apple, Google, iHeart, or anywhere you get your podcasts. All right, Casey. How about the Orlando Magic? In soccer, when you're a bad team, they drop you to I don't know how it works, but I know that you get dropped to a lower division. So is this the NBA relevancy of the Orlando Magic? They're going to be dropped down to the lower division, and somebody from the G League is going to come up to the NBA after what happened yesterday?
I mean, it's a good thing you've got the happiest place on earth in that same city or just outside of it, because
it's not that happy.
Yeah, these fans that are attending these Orlando games, first off, are going to be like, who are these guys on the court? And secondly, why did we completely dismantle a team that plays in the East, a conference where there's actual wiggle room to move up into the playoffs? Look, Denver's the winner. I mean, that's a great pickup for Denver. They're a team that we already thought was playing better basketball in the second half. And now you've got Gordon on the team. He's going to do nothing but help you. And as far as getting rid of your only all-star and sending, is it Vucevic? Do I always say it wrong?
Vucevic. Nikola Vucevic, yeah.
You send him to Chicago, which is kind of like Orlando, but just up in Illinois. Another team you can't figure out what the hell they're doing, but I think they're a big winner picking him up as well. And if I'm a Magic fan, I'm kind of going, look, I thought the Houston Rockets were going to get the number 1 draft pick. Maybe we can tank our way through this thing and find a way to pick up another big name. That is a very interesting scenario that went down there. It wasn't the biggest free agent, splashes, as we've had in years past. Sometimes we see massive moves, but I think a lot of teams that know what they've got. And the other thing about trying to break down this year, Charlie, is it's very difficult to determine who the best team is. I don't think any of the three of us can say right now, especially with King James being sidelined for quite a while. No Anthony Davis. That affects the Lakers. Embiid and the Sixers. That's a big deal as well. The inconsistent play of the Milwaukee Bucks. So look for a team like a Denver Nuggets to step up and start winning some basketball games. We've been talking a lot about the Miami Heat and how well they've been playing. I don't know that they made any big draft day moves. I've got a bunch of big boards opened up here. But all in all, I think losers, Orlando, winners, Bulls and Nuggets are probably what comes to the top of mind.
Yeah, I think the biggest, loudest non-move yesterday was from the Lakers. And I think their lack of moves screams we're not players right now. And the fact that they didn't make any big investments and move, because people wanted some of their younger, better assets in order to make a move, and they didn't do that. And that says to me that LeBron is not is LeBron's health situation is a little worse than what we know, and that AD may not be back this season because they didn't make that investment. Because we all know that the Lakers aren't cheap. If the Lakers would have felt that it was worth the investment, they would have ponied up with no problem. So I think that says to me that things are not great in Lakerland right now. So it was very interesting to me. I thought Denver was out and out overall the winner in all of the moves. I thought that was some great moves by them, and I expect to see some big movement from them in the regular season and also throughout the playoffs. I thought Chicago was amazing. I mean, the Bulls threw down the gauntlet and said, "Hey, we're serious about building this basketball team back up with what they did." And I thought Miami made some nice moves. I think getting Oladipo is nice. I think that it looks like that they're going to get the guy from San Antonio, the old brains. What's that?
LaMarcus
Aldridge. Thank you. They're going to get Aldridge, who's going to only probably be worth, 12 to 15 minutes a night, but it'll be good backup moves. And maybe he gets a little invigorated coming in there to be a part of that. So they're making some moves to try to shore themselves up to make a run down through there. So, and Fournier, he could make a difference for Boston. So that'll be there. The interesting part was how quiet the 76ers became, picking up George Hill, but that's not a bad pickup. They got him cheap. He's only $10 million a year. They get to keep him for 2 years, and he's a heck of a ball distributor who can also shoot a three when you need it.
No doubt about it. Vasu Vadaparty, Casey Freelove, Charlie O. This is a Make the Money and Run podcast for March 26, 2021. Joe Madden sent us a comment saying, "Let's make some money tonight, Joe, from your lips to God's ears every night." That's what we're here for, to do that. So we appreciate you following us. Lady D, also Betting and Heels on the Instagram page. She retweeted our tweet and our program today too, and she's doing very well with her Betting and Heels show, Hustle and Grind show with Joe and David Andrews, of course, is a big follower of Stables Media. We appreciate you on there. Let me give my takes here on the trading deadline, and we'll hit the games before we go to college basketball. Obviously, Orlando, they're going to rebuild. Aaron Gordon going to Denver. I can't figure out Aaron Gordon. He does a lot of things well, but he doesn't do one thing great. He's going to be great as a compliment to Nikola Jokic in Denver. JaVale McGee also went to Denver, and that's going to help Jokic with his minutes as well too. And defensively, they were injured all year, and now they're in the sixth spot. They're in the sixth spot. They're about 5 games ahead of the 7 through 10 teams in the NBA Western Conference. So they're not going to lose a playoff spot, and they're on the uptick. Charlie's comment to the Lakers, they really didn't need to make a trade. There was talk of Andre Drummond coming in. If they get Anthony Davis, LeBron James is going to come back in 2 weeks, and Anthony Davis may or may not come back, but it looks like he's going to come back in about 3 to 4 weeks. If they get that back, that's the equivalent of making a midseason trade to get your guys back, and everybody's going to fear them again. Right now, they're not feared. You watched them play Philadelphia last night. They couldn't shoot the ball great. Underplay by me, by the way, last night on the 215 on the Lakers. But the fact is that the Lakers are going to have that opportunity to do that. I'm really impressed with what Denver did. I'm impressed with the Chicago Bulls. I love Nikola Vucevic. Casey was not on the show yesterday, but I'll give you one stat, Casey. This is the nugget. This is what we do here for everybody on the show. Nikola Vucevic is the number 1 field goal percentage shooter on catch-and-shoot jump shots inside the three-point line. That's number 1 over Steph Curry, over Kyrie Irving, over any shooter in the NBA. Now, I know maybe it's not a lot of volume, but it's enough volume because he's a 20-point scorer in the NBA, and he's an all-star. And the Chicago Bulls, they needed somebody on the inside to complement Zach LaVine and all their other scorers they have because they don't play defense, and they're going to have to score in the East to get there. And I think they've upticked themselves from 8th or 9th where they were to get up into the top of this. They might even get to a top 4 based on how the East is, because Milwaukee's going to end up 3. They're 6 games ahead of the 4 teams who are Atlanta and New York and whoever else is there that all have 22 wins. They're 6 games back of Milwaukee. So we know who the top 3 seeds are going to be, not necessarily in the order And then we said the 7 to 10, Charlie and I did yesterday, the 7 to 10 play-in tournaments are going to determine the last two seeds of both the Western and Eastern Conference. You can check us out on Facebook Live and Stables Media YouTube Live. Keep checking our ticker. We have the basketball lines for tonight at the bottom. We're scrolling across. Let's hit the games before we get to the NCAA. This is the first half of the games tonight, the early games. Brooklyn 5.5 at Detroit, 219. Milwaukee 6 playing up against Boston. They had a big lead against Boston Wednesday night, and Boston came back and ended up covering the game after Boston was down 13. 235 is the total. And Phoenix 4 at 224. They lose to Orlando, and then Orlando gets its team. So apparently winning against Phoenix wasn't good enough for Orlando. They still got their team. Denver 2.5 at New Orleans tonight, 231.5. Minnesota 4.5 and 229.5 versus Houston. You have money on the game if you're going to watch the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Houston Rockets tonight, Casey.
Oh my God! How about a first quarter under? Can I get a total for the first quarter?
I don't think you need an under in this. There's going to be no defense in this game. Go ahead, Casey. What's your impressions of the NBA tonight, the last couple of days?
Yeah, it's going to be weird, and the funny thing is all favorites covered last night. I saw my gambling groups unite because obviously when you've got thousands of people in a gambling group, that shows public, and the public kicked some ass last night, picking up a bunch of money on parlays. So that script will probably be flipped, and it's interesting. That's a mental note all three of us should make for next season's trade deadline. Opportunity on the exact day that this stuff all goes down, with guys being moved out of markets and taken off of teams. Then again, you were just talking about Orlando, so maybe that goes out the door. A fun one tonight with a couple of teams that are hovering around 500 is going to be the Hawks and the Warriors. I think Atlanta 7.5 at Golden State. Now, Golden State can't play any defense, but they can certainly put it up. They allowed the Kings to score all kinds of points yesterday, get me a win there in the first half. But I think that's a very watchable matchup. I'm loving Trae Young. He's an exciting young talent that we don't get to see as much out here on the West Coast, and the Hawks don't get as many national TV games as they should. So that one, I think, is going to be a lot of fun. The Grizzlies have been playing better basketball. They're one game over 500, 10-7 away, but they've got to go to the home of the Utah Jazz, where they're 17-2 at home and laying 9.5 points. That's a pretty stout total there to take a look at. And then Suns and Raptors. This Raptors team that has just been left for dead. They decided not to trade Kyle Lowry. I think that is the right move. Wait till the offseason to figure it out. You've had injuries. You've had COVID stuff. Just let it flow. But I've got to think Phoenix has got to be pretty excited to be playing back-to-backs, even though they're only laying 4 tonight. So that's a good one. And then last thing here, Charlie, I think betting on the Brooklyn Nets has become just a very difficult thing to do because night to night, they never play with the same lineup. Now, this can go one of two ways when we get to the playoffs. Either all these guys will have so many minutes that they're going to be a very tough team and very deep with their roster, maybe going 7, 8, 9, 10 deep, or they're not going to have chemistry with their big three and not be able to play enough defense to get past some of these other top-tier teams. Brooklyn is clearly an intriguing team. And again, Vegas is so damn good at setting these lines to make my brain spin. Brooklyn -6. It's like, well, I like it, but do I love it? Because I don't even know who's going to be on the court. That might be one you have to live bet tonight, Chuck.
Yes, Casey, that's the problem. Who's going to play? And that's the mystery. That's the mystery with the Nets. I mean, first of all, if I'm going in to play the Pistons, am I going to play my frontline players? And the answer is absolutely not. I mean, this is a Pistons team who has sent out what decent players they had, and they're horrible. So, I'm just going to, I'm going to lay back. Obviously, I'm going to play Blake Griffin because he's going to come back in the Nets uniform and go nah. See what you got rid of, and so that's going to be fun. But this is a game that I wouldn't touch because who's playing, and that's going to be the problem in wagering on Nets games for a while. Because in the competitive games, they're going to play frontline players. In these throwaway games, it's going to be tough to know who they're going to play. Now, I'm not saying they're going to lose those games, but it's going to be tough to know who's going to cover and who's going to do what in those games. But I'm not worried come playoff time. I talked about, chemistry and who's going to handle the ball and who's going to have the ball and everything else. The few times that they've all been together, wow, It has been so beautiful. It just really has. It has just been so beautiful. I'm not worried about them at all come playoff time.
Well, I give the Brooklyn Nets a lot of credit because Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, James Harden, they all wanted to play together, and they realized that James Harden is probably the best passer amongst the three. And Kyrie Irving kind of plays the off guard. James Harden had 25 and 17 against Portland. No one played against Utah the other night, and they got blown out by 40. So I'm going to take that as a no play on my wagering from the other night. But the fact is that Brooklyn's probably going to have Harden tonight. They've got Detroit. They've played very well. They've won 9 out of their last 11. Charlie and I talked about it yesterday, Casey. The 76ers have played great. They've won 15 out of their last 18, including last night against the Lakers. They're 9-1 in their last 10 after the 2 defensive games they had against Golden State and the Lakers. But they can't separate themselves from Brooklyn right now, and that's without Durant and without Irving. Obviously, they don't have Joel Embiid yet either. But what's the play for Brooklyn here in terms of how they're going to catch Philadelphia, or are they even worried about catching Philadelphia? Are they better than Philadelphia? That's the question, I guess.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's the reason why. Just because the Embiid injury, I had intentions on buying a futures ticket on the Sixers win the East, but you just never know. I mean, this year is very, very difficult because we thought COVID was going to be the story. It's not. It's long-term injuries to some of the best players in the entire NBA, which makes handicapping much more difficult. And you know what else is funny, guys? A team we have not mentioned during this little NBA segment is the Milwaukee Bucks. I mean,
right.
Who knows with that team? They've got maybe one of the 3 best players in the planet Earth, but they also have a lot of inconsistency in their play. So the nice thing is we've got till May 15th or 16th-ish to sort this whole thing out when the regular season concludes. It's going to be a fun playoff run, and depending on how these injuries go, maybe we'll see a little May madness in the NBA rather than March Madness. Who knows? Could be fun.
Let me interrupt there for a second. Let me ask you about the West because we got our Western Conference takes out yesterday, Casey. The Utah Jazz lead the NBA in point differential. Before the Brooklyn game, they were plus 8.3. That obviously went up a little bit after their big win over Brooklyn the other night. But surprising to me, I didn't realize that they were the best in the NBA because Milwaukee, you never know what you get out of Milwaukee. And the fact you brought it up reminds me that some nights Milwaukee can score 130, and some nights they can't shoot if the ocean's in front of them. And here they are in the Eastern Conference, third behind Philadelphia and behind Brooklyn. What do we make of Milwaukee? They haven't shot as well. They haven't played as well. They certainly haven't covered as well for our purposes. So from that standpoint, we just got to figure out what the sense is for Utah. Now, Phoenix, they have the best road record in the NBA. Nobody else has lower than 8 losses, and Phoenix just got their 6th against Orlando. I didn't see the box score, so I don't know who played against Orlando after their big win against Miami. But can Phoenix catch Utah? That's the big question at the top. Lakers and Clippers, they have some games that are on and off. Kawhi Leonard sat out against the Spurs last night. I texted you that. That was kind of interesting that he sat out against the Spurs last night. And then we've got the Denver stuff going on. They're in 6th, all the way down there below these top 4 teams. Is it 6th? Who's in 5th then? I forgot who's in 5th then. It must be. Let's see. I forget. Lakers, Clippers, Denver, Utah, Phoenix. I forget who's 5th. But anyway, the fact is Denver was a big winner yesterday. So what's your West take on the NBA here, Casey?
Well, I'm looking at the schedule, and I'm liking what Phoenix has coming up here. They're going on the road. Well, they're on the road. They've been on the road. They're going to go at Toronto, coming off a loss at Orlando, which was shocking. So I expect they'll clean things up there because Toronto's been affected by a bunch of things we talked about. Then they go at Charlotte, home against Atlanta, against Chicago, and Oklahoma City, then Houston. That's a pretty nice stretch coming up. Those are all winnable games for a team that's been playing as well as Phoenix has. Gets a little tougher later in the season, but it's not an overwhelming schedule by any means. I've been in love with this team since the bubble opened last year in Orlando, and they've done nothing but impress us. I mean, getting Chris Paul is going to go down as one of the best moves in maybe recent NBA times, because the one thing about this, Charlie, there's no wiggle room typically to get to the top. There's always wiggle room in the 6, 7, 8 hole in the Western Conference, but to become an elite team in the West, it's so damn difficult. I mean, whether it was the Warriors or now the Lakers and the Clippers, there just isn't that much room. And the fact that we're still talking Jazz followed by the Suns in the top 2 seeds it warms my NBA fan heart. Let's get some of these mid-major markets that don't get a lot of TV time and get them out there and get them displayed to us on TNT and ESPN as high seeds who have a chance to compete. And the one thing I'll say about Utah, Chuck, as I throw it to you, anybody who's watched that team play 48 minutes of basketball knows that it is going to be very, very hard to beat them 4 out of 7. I don't care who it is.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, Vasu, right now, Denver and Portland are in a tie.
Okay, Portland. That's what I forgot.
Situation there.
By the way, I'm glad you brought that up. Portland with a big win last night as well too. They've won 2 out of 3. They beat Miami. They got Orlando tonight, and they went in and they beat Miami last night. But they lost to Brooklyn on Tuesday because Brooklyn had James Harden going for 25 and 17. I'm not sold on Portland's defense yet. Hopefully, Norman Powell. That's a trade we forgot to mention, Charlie. Norman Powell got traded for Toronto to Portland. Here's a stat for you that I saw last night. Thank you, SportsCenter, for providing these. The only team in the NBA with 3 guys under 6'3" that are averaging 19 a game are the Portland Trailblazers. They just happen to be 3 pretty good players in Lillard, McCollum, and Powell. But that's a stat for a day when we don't have any NBA basketball to talk about.
Absolutely. And Casey, your point so well taken too about Utah and Phoenix. And I think one thing that people need to understand is that these are not overnight successes. Both of these teams have been building to this point over the last 5 years. You could see the momentum and build under Quinn Snyder with Utah coming. They have been building to this place. Phoenix, an absolute tank job. And then they started building with the pieces of building key players as they drafted them and then started filling in. And then they were looking for that one key veteran player that could come in and lock that down. And Chris Paul came in and really lifted them up to that next level. And they got the right coach and they got the right things to put it together. And I think people, it's been so long, people forget about what a great NBA town Phoenix has been historically. So, that area, the Valley of the Sun's got to be going nuts because this is the kind of basketball in the association that they're used to. This is the history that they have had of being a team that's been very, very competitive in the NBA. So they've got to be out of their minds down there.
Vasu Vatapar, Casey Freelove, Charlie O. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast for Friday, March 26, 2021. You can download and subscribe on anywhere you get your podcasts, or you can join us live on Facebook or the Stables Media YouTube page. Let me just throw a pin on this. And as far as the draft goes, both the NFL and the NBA, the same teams always end up in the same draft positions. We said that in the NFL. We said that in the NBA. I'm more excited about players to come in. I watched Sacramento play last night, 2-0 in the NBA last night, by the way, for me with Sacramento and the under on the Philadelphia 76ers. I said all summer, last summer, Tyrese Halliburton is going to be the best rookie coming out this year. And with LaMelo Ball being injured and Wiseman having his troubles, Anthony Edwards playing on a bad team in Minnesota, Sacramento with a big win. He couldn't miss last night. Sacramento's got a chance to build. I know you guys are in Sacramento. You see the Kings every day. As far as finding talent and seeing talent in the NFL and the NBA, this is where it gets exciting from the talent standpoint. I just think that the tank jobs in the NBA seem to be working a little bit better than the NFL, because every year I see the Jets there, and every year everybody gets excited about who the next big thing is. It's just like anything that's the next big thing in life. So I kind of temper my attitude towards when the teams are drafted and who's this and who's that. But I do get excited about players. And Casey knows I was right about Tyrese Halliburton. So that's where I'm going to end this. Let's take 30 seconds and take a break. We're going to hit the NCAA Sweet 16 this weekend. We got all 4 regions set up. The Final 4 set up for the following weekend. Sweet 16 this weekend with the Elite 8 on Monday and Tuesday. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast. Back in 30 seconds. Welcome back to the Make the Money and Run podcast for Friday, March 26th, 2021. Vasi Vada Party here, Casey Freelove, Charlie O. Let me do a little forward promoting here. Next week, we're going to be on Monday. The Elite Eight will go Monday, Tuesday, and then the Final Four will be next weekend. We're going to have a baseball preview show as we're 6 days away from opening day. And then a little story in the NBA that I know I wanted to get to. We talked about it yesterday. Casey and Charlie live in Sacramento, California. Sacramento Kings, March is Women's Empowerment Month, and the Sacramento Kings, along with the Golden State Warriors and the Toronto Raptors, are going to have an all-female broadcast crew Saturday night. Katie Hunter and I forgot the Laura Britt and LaShawna Crawford, and then what's her name, Reagan?
Morgan Reagan. Yeah,
Morgan Reagan is going to be the social media person for the Sacramento Kings, and the play-by-play person for Sacramento, somebody I've known a long time, is Krista Blanc. She's an analyst for the Pac-12 Network, and she's going to do the play-by-play tomorrow night against the Cleveland Cavaliers. And the reason I bring that up, one, it's Women's Empowerment Month. The Golden State Warriors are going to do that on Monday on the radio, and the Toronto Raptors crew did a great job on Wednesday night. If you have League Pass or can get access to it, you might want to listen for a few minutes. Is that Krista's going to come on with me at 3 o'clock for a conversation with. I got her in the midst of all the publicity and everything. So if you're interested and you want to listen to Krista Blanc's story, West Coast time, 6 o'clock Eastern on Facebook Live and Stables Media YouTube page. It's another show that I do. It's called A Conversation With, and I get interview concepts. And when I heard she was doing this, I reached out. And she's free for 15 minutes. So join me at 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific with Krista Blanc. We'll talk about the Sacramento Kings, the play-by-play opportunity on Saturday night with all the women that are there that are going to be part of the Sacramento Kings broadcast on NBC Sports California. Okay, Make the Money and Run podcast. We're here to talk about basketball. Now the NCAA, the Sweet 16. Let's start in the South. Baylor has gone up from 7 to 7.5 now versus Villanova, 141.5, which is up from 140 on Wednesday when we talked about it. And then Arkansas, 11.5, 158.5 versus Oral Roberts. Casey, the South is interesting here. Baylor keeps going up. Villanova cruised through their first 2 games. They're not the same Villanova team they were in their championship run, but here they are, maybe getting a little disrespected by the line going up.
They are. They are being disrespected, and it comes down to coaching. I've said it for every show we've done during this tournament. The best coaches are the coaches that are remaining, and this is going to be a fun basketball game. Now, I think Baylor is going to end up winning, but when we get to picks, I'll tell you even more about why I like Villanova, because they've adjusted now. We've been talking about Gillespie being gone. Well, it's been a couple weeks now, and they've had a chance to adjust. 2 teams we've seen make adjustments, guys. Villanova Wildcats, UCLA Bruins. Those are good coaches that know what they're doing. So I think that's going to be very intriguing. And along with that other matchup with UCLA and, you said you wanted to talk about the Arkansas game. They played Oral Roberts, and they beat them by 11 in Fayetteville earlier this year. That might be the only matchup where these 2 teams have actually seen each other earlier in the season, even though they're nowhere like what they were early on in the season. I don't know, I'm kind of brain farting here because I literally studied every single one of these games for an hour last night. I'm not sure.
Paralysis by analysis.
Let me throw it over to Chuck, and let's talk a little bit about, again, the public money is going to come in on these 1 seeds. Baylor is going to get a crap load of money on them, and Gonzaga is going to have the most public money on them. Looking at consensus odds on OddsShark right now. As I said, and then didn't follow last weekend, look at who the public is betting and fade the public. Las Vegas is here for your money. They have had the worst year they've ever had operating in recent times, and they don't give a shit if you come back next year. They're coming for your money this year, and it's going to be another dog weekend. It just is.
Oh, yeah, Casey, absolutely. First of all, remember, this has been a bad year in Las Vegas. It's been a bad year back east in Jersey. They have mortgages to pay. They're behind on the mortgages. They want your money. And yeah, this is the time to play the dogs. This is the time to fade the public. And there's going to be some value out there. And we've seen it already in the tournament. I mean, in the 4 games that I played last week, I went dogs in all 4 games. Now I went 2-2, but as crazy as last weekend was, I was happy to go even last week. I mean, I really was, because it was so nutso I could have easily gone 0-4 if I would have tried to go other way. So yeah, this is definitely a fade the public weekend all the way. And you look at it, and you go, well, Baylor, absolutely. Do I think Baylor's going to win? Yes, I think Baylor's going to win. Do I think Baylor's going to cover? Not necessarily. Because this is it's a Villanova team that we didn't necessarily think was going to make it this far. As a matter of fact, I didn't think they were going to make it this far. So that's there. And of course, Oral Roberts. No, we didn't think they were going to be here. Everybody thought Oral Roberts was going out in game one. Although a number of smart people were saying no, and now a number of people are saying they may be the best number 15 seed that we've seen in years. And you were on assignment yesterday, but we were talking a little bit about this team and their makeup. They have a number of players that are from Central Europe. And we've talked a lot before that I really like players out of Central Europe because they grow up learning to play every position. Doesn't make any difference if you're 6'7". You're going to learn to play point guard. You're going to learn to play shooting guard. You're going to learn to play both forward spots, and you're going to learn to play center. They learn to play positionless basketball, and it makes them very dangerous because they're capable of playing any spot out there. So they're going to give Arkansas a run, and I talked a little bit about it yesterday. I felt that all season long, even though Arkansas is a good team, they kind of mirrored the coach in the sense they've been a bit bipolar, and you don't know kind of how they're going to be coming in and out. So I have to tell you, I might lean, if I were playing spread on that game, I might be real tempted to go Oral Roberts and take the points.
Let me bring this up, Vasu.
Go ahead, Casey.
Two underdogs are getting a ton of public money. This is consensus odds from OddsShark. Oral Roberts has 66% of the money at plus 11.5, and that point spread set exactly where the game ended in Fayetteville earlier this year with Arkansas winning by 11. Then you've got Syracuse, coach's kid, Buddy Boeheim ball. They're getting 68% of the money at plus 6.5. Got some other quick fun facts for you guys because we're going to run through all the games. Who are the best teams against the spread in recent years in this round? Well, Syracuse and Villanova, 3-0. Not bad. Who are the worst teams against the spread in this round, being the Sweet 16? UCLA, 0-4 their last 4. Baylor, 0-3 their last 3. And Gonzaga, 2-5 their last 7 trips to the Sweet 16. I know that trends and stuff can be thrown out the door because teams change from year to year, but it's something to keep an eye on. One more fun fact. Worst conference against the spread records in this round. The Pac-12 teams are 1-8 coming off of a point spread cover. And I'm pretty sure every team that made it this far covered their point spread in the last round. So it's just a little thing to digest. And if you really dig deep into the podcast, take a couple of notes, you might be able to find one that you can either bet for or against. I certainly use this line of thinking into my handicapping picks for the weekend.
Vasu Vatapalli, Casey Freelove, Charlie O, the Make the Money and Run podcasts, handicapping the Sweet 16 for this weekend. Let's move on to the Midwest region. Loyola Chicago has gone up from 6 to 6.5 to 7 now, 125. The extra point, a little divine intervention. Sister Jean, 101 years old, giving out handicapping picks. Well, not handicapping picks, but scouting reports definitely on Oregon State, talking about their shooters and talking about their defensive play. She thinks Loyola Chicago's defense can stop Oregon State in their hot shooting from last week. And then we talked about Houston a little bit. They've gone up from 6 to 6.5, the total 140.5. Got about 10 minutes here to run through the rest of the regions here, Casey. So go ahead and give us the Midwest region, what you're looking at from this standpoint in the Midwest.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at Loyola being a live team, but the Oregon State is a team I would not want to play. I mean, I was kind of crapping on them even at the beginning of their last game against Oklahoma State, and I'm out there blustering, Cade Cunningham and Avery Anderson and the Cowboys are going to win. Well, again, going against my own advice and betting on a team that did not win their conference championship game and a team that did, and the Oregon State ended up winning. Plus, they're getting career highs out of guys you never even heard of. Now, for Loyola, you've got the Missouri Valley Player of the Year with Krutwig, and they've got 2 other guys that were on that 2018 Final Four team. They've also got a 20-year-old guy that I saw the best meme online yesterday said, why does this guy look like a middle-aged plumber that should be at my house? That dude number 20 with a mustache. That one made me giggle a little bit as well. Two great coaches here that I have a feeling could be moving on to bigger programs after this game. Charlie, of all the games I want to watch, oddly, this is one that I have near the top.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be a great one. I mean, obviously, Oregon State, one of the most interesting teams in the tournament because they weren't going to this tournament if they hadn't won the Pac-12 tournament. They weren't going to be there. So that's fascinating in itself. And Loyola Chicago, it's like the little engine that could. And Sister Jean, she's just icing on the cake. I feel like if I root against Sister Jean, I'm going to, be cursed or something, and she would be the first to say, stop that, don't do that. But this is a very fascinating game. I got to tell you guys, I've kind of fallen in love with Oregon State. And so I'm a little dangerous because I've kind of got a sweet spot for them now. And so I have to be careful in my analysis on this because I really like them. And then that Syracuse-Houston game. Wow. And guys, I hate Syracuse. I hate Jim Boeheim. I love that zone. And, I keep looking at that zone going, it's the same stinking zone he's been playing since 1976. And it works. It just is stopping everybody in their tracks. And I'm telling you, Houston's in for a battle. They're in for a battle. If this was a wrestling match, it would be a battle royale and it'd be a cage match. And I'm looking forward to this game because I think it's going to be a right down to the wire game.
Loyola Chicago shoots pretty. Go ahead, Casey. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to add one little other fun nugget. Jerry McNamara, point guard with Carmelo Anthony when they won the 2003 title. Now assistant there with Boeheim, preaching that zone defense. And the one thing we got to keep an eye on, Vasu, with this particular game, how the heck can he keep this up? I'm talking about Buddy, 32 of 66 from three-point land, almost one out of every two shots he puts up. It's very hard to defend that.
It's very hard to defend that. The one thing we talked about Syracuse's zone is they attack the zone right when you cross half court, and they're long across that zone. And I think that's what's been successful is Jim Boeheim finds players that can play the zone defense because you can teach offense. That's one of his big things. Obviously, he's got Buddy Boeheim scoring, his son. But their zone defense is going to be tough for Houston. They've got shooters on that team. But the one thing Syracuse has a problem with is rebounding. Houston's very good on the offensive glass, and that's something that they're going to have to watch out because I think Houston can run on them. If they can get out in the break and they can force missed shots from Syracuse, they're not going to have enough time to get back in that zone defense. As far as Oregon State, they're senior laden. They've got shooters on that team. I'm not sure Loyola's shooting is good enough to compete as far as covering a 7-point spread, but I think Oregon State's defense a little lacking a little bit. It's going to be a great game. The total of 125 according to the handicappers. So you got to think it's going to be in the 50s anyway with both defenses, with Loyola Chicago's defense, and Oregon State can go cold. So we'll see how it goes. All right, let's move on to the East region now. Michigan Wolverines. I'm just having a tough time figuring this out because I really like Isaiah Livers. They're really good. I mean, they came back against Louisiana State. They came back against LSU last weekend when LSU had them on the ropes. The defense took over, and all of a sudden they started hitting threes. They've got Brooks, they've got Smith, they've got the big guy in the middle with Dickinson, and then you complement him with Austin Davis in the middle. A 2.5-point favorite that's pretty much stayed the same from Wednesday. Last time we talked about the NCAA, 143.5. Florida State has good offensive players, and they've got good length here, Casey. And then Alabama, 6.5. That's moved up from 6 from Wednesday, but it's pretty much stayed the same, 145.5. That total seems high to me because of UCLA. But UCLA, they can go in slumps as well, too. Remember, they lost 4 in a row going into the Pac-12 conference, and I know there's 4 teams from the Pac-12 still in the Sweet 16 with USC Oregon, which we'll talk about in a second. But Alabama has to shoot well. They've got to be able to – UCLA has got to be able to shut them down offensively because Alabama can play great defense, and UCLA has to figure out how to run Nick Cronin's offense to be able to shoot the ball well in order to be able to stay with Alabama because they played great all year in the SEC.
They did, and the nice thing is Petty really picked it up in the second half for the Tide in that game, and I think that they're going to be able to build confidence on that. Anybody who only watched that from about the 16-minute timeout down to the 4-minute timeout of the second half with Bama, Maryland, really saw what the Crimson Tide can do. They've got 3 great players. They've got one of the best up-and-coming coaches in the land, and I think he's motivated. I do have a lot of love for UCLA, though. I talked about Mick Cronin, who did a great job at Cincinnati before he came out there. And then Johnny Juzang, the X Factor. How's his ankle? Having some time to ice it, get it ready to go. It didn't seem like it affected him in the second round. This one's going to be a war. I think this game is very difficult to handicap from a point spread perspective. I could see UCLA getting that backdoor cover, but I really think the Tide are going to move on in this round. And I'll just say this briefly about Michigan and Florida State, Chuck. This will be the least bet game. This is the most confusing game. This is probably the most balanced game that we've got in this round. I would be pretty surprised if this isn't one where you better be tuned in when they come back from that under 4 timeout in the second half.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to tell you, Casey, of all those games, if you said to me on Sunday, you have to wager on 3 of the 4 games and you have one game you can toss out, you don't have to wager on, that's the game. Because I think, to me, that is the hardest game right there to look at and try to figure out how you would lay your money. Interestingly enough, I'm just looking now. The sharp bettors on that game are they're going 60% of their money is going to Florida State. I was just going to see here what the public money is doing. Maybe I will. The public money is going, I don't know. Maybe there's no public money.
Well, let's move on to the West region here. We got about 5 minutes. We want to get our picks in for everybody. So Gonzaga, 13.5, stayed the same. Creighton, they played all right against Santa Barbara, and then they blew out. University of Ohio. I love USC on when they play on Sunday, I guess, against Oregon. This will be the second time they've played this year, Casey. USC -2. I think defensively USC is going to be great, and I think Gonzaga, really, they're rolling right now.
Yeah, they are rolling. Again, the reason why I'm going to play Creighton as a pick, getting 13.5, is because by the time this thing tips off, public money is going to be up at probably a 3-to-1 ratio, 75%. Just looking around right now, Creighton's not going to win this basketball game, but Creighton could certainly lose this basketball game by 10, 11, 12, or even 13 points. I feel like behind the scenes, after the controversy they had, they came together, they regrouped, they realized, look, we got to pick it up offensively, and that's exactly what they did after that struggle against Santa Barbara. So I just like him in this position to cover the points, not to win the basketball game. And then, the main event, I've got friends that are alumni of Oregon and friends that are alumni of USC. I freaking love both these programs having to play each other. I think it's going to be fantastic, a contrasted styles. And, man, I wish we had another 20 minutes because I think we could just focus in on this game. It is going to be a lot of fun. And if you're curious, the public is on SC -2 at 54%, according to OddsShark. This one's going to be a war. They know each other, and SC beat them by 14 points earlier this year. So the Ducks probably have revenge on their mind. Another fun thing we'll keep an eye on, did the rest help Oregon? Because they played 48 less minutes of intense basketball. Maybe they're feeling a little healthier, Charlie.
All right, Charlie, let's get to picks here. We got about a minute left, so let's get to picks here. Casey's picks on the screen. Houston, Minnesota. The Rockets +4.5, and then Saturday he's got Syracuse under 140.5. Sunday UCLA, Alabama under 145.5. What do you think about those, Casey?
It's Houston, Syracuse over 140.
Oh, over. I'm sorry, my bad.
Rockets and Timberwolves. Villanova +7.5. Houston, Syracuse over 140.5. Alabama money line -270. Creighton +13.5. All my plays.
All right, go ahead, Charlie. Give us your picks.
Okay, you had my picks up there.
Was that what it was? Okay. Let me go back to it then.
I've got Houston, Minnesota. I've got the Rockets +4.5 tonight. Over the weekend, I have Syracuse and Houston. I took the under 140.5. So Casey and I have split. So that means something good for somebody, because whenever we split, we make winners out of somebody. Whenever we agree, you're in trouble. And then on Sunday, I took that UCLA Alabama game, and I went under 145.5 on that one.
I like that. Brooklyn 5.5. Milwaukee, Boston over 235.5. Utah -9.5. College, Oral Roberts +11.5. Oregon State +7. Gonzaga -13.5. USC -2, and Alabama, UCLA under 145.5. We're running out of time. That's all we've got. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week on Monday. Have a great time. Bye.